Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rich Sports Talk, your home for all the latest and greatest on the New York Jets. And we have a lot to talk about today. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of our latest content. And if you want to take us on the go, you can do that at any time and stream us wherever podcasts are available. But make sure to hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of our latest videos and so we can get this out to more great New York Jets fans. So Darren Muji has been busy adding not one, but two huge pieces of beef to the interior of this defensive line. A lot of little things going around with the Jets, rumors all about, but let's start off with this. So I'm going to break down the Jets' recent trades like this. I'm going to first break it down with my player analysis, what I like about the deal, and what I like about the players the Jets have on the return end. Then I'm going to look at this from a schematic point of view, how these two players impact the scheme. And then I will look at why this is a good thing from the front office and why I'm very encouraged, and why I think you as Jet fans should also be encouraged. Again, the comment section is open. Make sure to use that super chat feature if you want to jump to the front of the line or make a donation here. So let's start off with the trade. So, of course, the big one was Harrison Phillips, which was the second trade. But this was a big one for the New York Jets. Now, Harrison Phillips, if you may remember last year, sacked Aaron Rodgers in London, comes from the Vikings, 2-year contract extension he's in right now. The Jets, of course, eating $3.7 million of it. It is split between the two teams, as it's clear. The Vikings are doing this as a salary dump. They're clearly in the wide receiver market. They're trying to open up some cap space. But what are the Jets getting? They're getting a 29-year-old big run stuffer. He's 53 straight starts, incredibly durable, which is something this team desperately needs. And realistically, Phillips is now the starting defensive tackle next to Quinnen. He's not going to bring you much in the pass rush game. He'll get 2 or 3 sacks probably this season, maybe 4. He is going to plug in the middle of that defense. He's going to alleviate those double teams off of Quinnen. And even if the Jets find out he's cooked at this point, the good news is their contract is non-guaranteed past this year, so it is an easy cut. But if he plays well, he's under contract for 2 years, still just 29 years old. Big run stuffer, can play the nose tackle position, which is key to something I will bring up later. And basically, the way you look at this, the Jets moving 6th-round picks. They have 4 6th-round picks, but they get a 7th-rounder back in this deal. So they traded 2027 7th rounder, the 2026 6th rounder, but they get a 7th rounder for next year. So look, I don't think the Jets gave up anything. And here's a big thing I looked for in this trade. Whenever you see someone is traded, I always look at what is the reaction from the team and the people around the team that the player was traded from. So I looked at the Vikings and I looked at how their fans reacted, and many were disappointed because, again, they have some good young players coming up, but this is a team captain. This is someone that's well respected in the community in Minnesota. This is someone they very liked. And also, if you listen to the beat writers, a lot of them were shocked. People didn't even think he was on the block. And in fact, he missed practice on Saturday, and many thought that was just a rest day. Maybe he had a minor injury, but turns out the team was shopping him. And it also came out that another team called the Vikings about Phillips, but the Jets had already made the trade for him. Look, I really like this deal. The thing that the Jets have been lacking is a great run stuffer, especially over the last couple of years. Teams have been able to run the ball down the Jets' throat. Quinnen has been getting abused with double teams. He's been getting worn out on the inside. And we've been saying this, that the Jets haven't been able to find that big run stuffer. Now, I understand people were upset they didn't add one in the draft. I understand that they were upset that they didn't add one in free agency. But to be honest, I think this is great timing. I think the Jets looked at 2 teams that had a plethora of depth at the D tackle position. They had multiple 6th-round picks to play with, and I give them a lot of credit for having the wherewithal to go out there and make this deal and get a guy who I think is a plug-and-play guy right next to Quinnen. Again, won't be in there in a lot of the pass rushing downs, but early downs, 1st and 2nd down, running downs, Phillips next to Quinnen Williams will be great. Now, all of a sudden, you look at that defensive line and early running downs, penciling Jermaine Johnson, and you feel a lot better. So overall, I thought this was an incredible move, and I think that this is a nice piece. And look, worst case scenario, if Phillips doesn't work out, it's a low risk, high reward type of deal and a contract the Jets can get out from underneath. The other move the Jets made, which was the first move, was bring in Jowon Briggs, the defensive tackle from the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland obviously drafted Mason Graham early in this draft. They had a bunch of defensive tackle position. They took him in the 6th round last year. Jets basically get a player, trade their 6th, and get a 7th round pick out of it. So they basically swap picks into round 7. Look, the thing I really like about Briggs is this is a big run stuffer, really strong guy. And the big thing I look for is he's like Phillips in the sense he doesn't have that burst and that twitch to get upfield in the pass rush, but he is just a boulder and hard to move. 3'15", 6'1", a bit shorter, but again, that gives him better leverage underneath, especially on the guards. Played in limited snaps, came on, played in the last 6 games for Cleveland, played very well against the run, a couple tackles for losses. I also think that this is a smart move for the Jets because you bring in a young guy who could be a very nice rotational piece. He probably will not be an every down D tackle. But could I see him over the next 3 years, again, 3 years of controllable contract, less than $1 million a year, being a very valuable run-stopping defensive end? I really do think that could be a very good case. And learning from Harrison Phillips in front of him is a very good, I think, mentorship as well and a good transition for this guy. And the big thing, too, is when you look at the Jets' defensive tackle room, Tufele, yes, he can stop the run, but he is a better pass rusher at this point. A lot of the Jets' defensive tackles and the ones that they had were bitter on the small side, more getting up the field, more getting a pass rush. There wasn't really a true run stopper. And I think a lot of us in this fan base understood that this team didn't really have those uglies, as I like to call them, on the inside, those big bruisers that, again, just plug spaces, make it difficult to get double teams. You eat those blocks. This also allows smaller linebackers like Sherwood and Quincy to not get guards up on them pulling in the second level, which was a big issue last year. And overall, I think that you brought in a young player that's under team control, clearly someone that the Jets very liked. I do think he was probably going to be cut by the Browns, but this would have been a high priority free agent for a bunch of teams. The Jets took the notion, they got him under contract, and I think you're going to see a lot of this in the next coming days. 6th and 7th round picks going for cut guys just to ensure that you get them on your team. So overall, I'm very happy. They added over 600 pounds of defensive tackle, which I'm never going to disagree with. But it does bring up something very interesting. Now, Cowart looks like he's going to be out longer than expected. The Jets announced within the last hour that Rashard Weaver is going on season-ending IR, even though he's a DN, but I do think that this is paramount. And again, comments, we'll get to your comments in a bit. Super chat to jump to the front of the line and make a donation to the channel. But one thing that I don't think a lot of people are talking about with these moves is this defense. Because in this preseason, yes, the Jets have done a lot of 4-3, 4-2. They played very vanilla defense, let's be honest. But when I look at the background for Aaron Glenn, and especially Steve Wilks, the Jets defensive coordinator, he has done a lot of 3-4 fronts. Now, I don't think the Jets are going to be exclusively a 3-4 front. I think they're going to be multiple fronts. They're going to have a lot of different looks. But by bringing these two guys in, it does give the Jets a bit more flexibility if they want to run some more 3-4. What do I mean by that? Harrison Phillips has been the nose tackle in the 3-4 for the Vikings. And again, this is someone that the Jets defensive line coach who was with the Bears previously, Aaron Glenn with the Lions. They've seen him a lot the last couple of years. They know what he can do. They know what he can bring to the table. So Phillips can play the nose. Now, you wonder now, what does that mean for the rest of the defensive line? Could there be a couple plays? And I'm not saying a lot, but 5 to 6 snaps a game, you move Quinnen out to a defensive end position in basically a 3-4 front, so he's in between the guard and tackle, maybe get him a good one-on-one there. Does this mean you're going to stand up Will McDonald coming off the outside on a couple of plays? Could Jermaine Johnson be on the line with his hand in the dirt? Could he be a stand-up on the outside? This gives the Jets a lot of different looks. Like, there could be a package, like we talked about Briggs, traditional defensive tackle, but you put Quinnen at end, you put Briggs at one end, you put Phillips in the middle in an early running down. Yes, it's a 3-down front, but you have close to 900 pounds of humanity up there. You could stand Jermaine up at the edge. You could get Will McDonald on the edge so he's not going inside on the tackle, but working off the tackle's outside shoulder. This gives the Jets a lot of flexibility, and it gives them what I think they really needed. Jay Tufel, I think, can be a guy that can get upfield. We saw that in the Packer game, a better pass rusher. It gives the Jets a lot more tools in the toolbox that they can implement. I'm going to give you my thoughts also on what I think this means for the organization and also for Darren Muji, the Jets GM. But I see some comments coming in, and I don't want to leave you out there. Let's see. From Drones. Once again, Jets late. Why y'all just now bringing in D tackles as a need before last season was over? Why not draft a D tackle? The Jets kill me. Look, it's clear that they didn't love the defensive tackles in this draft. I have again said, Drones, I've been in opinion that I wanted the Jets to draft a defensive tackle. The timing to me doesn't really bother me. The big thing is that they had a need and they addressed it. And this to me leads into my point with Darren Muji and my point with this front office. To me, this is a very good sign for Darren Muji because the Jets easily could have gone into the season resting on their laurels, looking at the players that they brought in. These are my guys. We're not going to make any moves and just roll with the guys they have. Sound familiar? Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas. We knew guys weren't going to work, but they said, don't worry, these are our guys. This is what I think is a very underrated move here because with what Muji has done, I think very smartly, has sent messages to this locker room. Look, we're looking to improve this team. And if you're not getting the job done, we will look to improve this ball club. One of the things I said about Douglas and Saleh especially was they, I thought, had decent off seasons, but it was this time of year and early in the season when you needed to make adjustments that they wouldn't do it. When Aaron Rodgers went down that first season, the fact that this team did not make the adjustment or the effort to bring in another quarterback to at least be an emergency plan if Zach Wilson spiraled out of control, which he did, was damn near criminal. Last year, when Greg Zuerlein lost his fastball and couldn't make a kick to save his life, the Jets kept trotting out the same player over and over again. Well, this also shows accountability. You know what? We brought in these defensive tackles to compete. We don't love what we have here. We need to get better. And they went out and they made two solid moves that I think improved this football team and make them a better run-stopping defensive team, make them more physical team in the trenches, and a team that can control the run game. Because the biggest issue with this Jets defense hasn't been the pass rush. It hasn't been the defensive backs. It's been the run defense. That has been a place where the Jets have been bullied in the last couple of years. And I think that these two moves are taking steps in the right direction to prevent that from happening. D, Vikings fan here, just saying, y'all got a solid piece and a great team here in the locker room for a million price. Good luck this season. Thank you, D. Also, awesome profile picture as well. And that's one thing I really looked at too. When I looked at the Vikings, like you saw their fan base. It wasn't like, oh, good riddance. Oh, we're getting rid of an injury prone. Oh, he looked terrible this summer. It was, why are we making this move? This guy has been a great leader. He's been a great clubhouse guy, and he's still a highly productive player for this team. And again, coming from that Brian Flores scheme, that, you know, that having that nasty attitude, I think he's going to fit right in. And especially in a defensive tackle room with a lot of young guys and a defensive line room with a lot of young guys, this could be a nice veteran presence to bring in to help especially develop some of these younger guys as we move forward. Chris, CB Jets fan. Thank you again. Appreciate Chris as always. Chris, a great fan as always. Go Jets. I love Phillips and Briggs, bolster defensive line and run defense. They definitely bring a lot to this defense, and they bring a lot what we were severely missing. Now, again, I know some fans are upset they didn't address this need earlier, but they've addressed it. They've upgraded this football team at a key time of year. And look, they did what Muji did, what a smart GM did. He went to two teams that he knew. One was offloading a veteran player for money, which was the Vikings. Targeted them, was able to cut a deal where the Jets are paying half the salary, but it opens up space for the Jets and they get a starting caliber defensive player. And then they go to the Browns, a group that has an incredibly talented defensive line, but again, spent a top 5 pick on a defensive tackle. He's there. They already have Garrett. They have a ton of money and assets invested in that D line. and it looked like he was going to be the odd man out, and there was going to be a lot of effort to go get him, and they made sure that he didn't hit to the free agent market. So now I know the next question will be this. And I know a lot of you are typing it, but let me get to it, Jet fans, and I know what you're thinking. The two biggest needs on this team are defensive end and wide receiver. So let me get into the defensive end, and then I will get into the wide receiver, because especially on social media, you've seen a lot of talk that the Jets are looking to upgrade the wide receiver position. So let me address the defensive ends, then I'll get to the wide receivers. Defensive end. Now, a lot of people I know are saying, well, the Jets, they should try to trade for a pass rusher, upgrade the edge position. The thing with the edge position with the Jets, and I know Michael Clemens, I don't love being a third. There's worse options for your third defensive end, but again, I don't love it. I think a lot of this also comes down to how much 3-4 fronts the Jets are going to play. But there are two big names out there that I think are interesting. And then we'll know what the Jets feel about this defensive end room, because if they don't love this defensive end room, of all the free agent positions out there, I feel like the edge position, yes, you have older edges, but it's one of the few positions where you can just go out and sign a guy and see it's a significant upgrade. I think the two names I would watch, the first one should be pretty obvious, is Zadarius Smith. Zadarius Smith, defense end with the Lions last year, played under Aaron Glenn. This almost just seems like too perfect of an alignment, someone that's played in the scheme that Aaron Glenn wants to run. I think he, being a more older player, would be a nice change of pace, defensive end, someone that you can come in and pass rushing situations, someone that you're not looking for every down, but could be a nice piece and a nice rotational piece. Again, I'm not sure what he's really looking for, if he's looking for a Super Bowl playoff caliber team, if that's what he's really looking for. But if he's looking for a role and he's looking for a team to play, he's a name I would keep an eye on. And the other one's Jadeveon Clowney. Now, Clowney, I think, is a frustrating one, because I think he's exactly what the Jets need. A really good edge setter in the run game. Brings plus pass rushing. Even at this age, he's going to be good for at least 8 to 9 sacks a season. The one reason I think Clowney could be more in play than Smith is this. I'm not sure what Smith is valuing. I think Smith, if he is looking for a playoff caliber team or a team to make a Super Bowl run, that might be a little bit tricky for the Jets to match. But Jadeveon Clowney, we know what he's about. He's a mercenary. He's going to go to the highest bidder. We saw it last year. Carolina, who we knew was going to be a bottom 3 team, gave him a couple more pennies than the Jets, and Clowney went there. That's all you need to know. Now, again, we'll see how the Jets react. Rashard Weaver, of course, within the last hour, went on season-ending IR. How does that impact how the Jets approach the defensive end position? I'm very curious. I'm also curious, are there some fringe guys on Detroit or maybe Denver that Muji or Aaron Glenn are keeping an eye on, seeing how that shakes out, seeing if maybe the Lions are looking to move off of a guy that Glenn really likes, or the same thing with the Broncos. Do the Jets jump in? Again, they've added a couple 7th-rounders. Could they use one of these 7th-rounders to go out and get another sort of piece, or a piece that's going to get cut, but they don't want to risk them going and signing with a different team? Those could certainly be in play. So again, Super Chat, jump to the front of the line. Make sure to give us a like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our latest content. And again, we are definitely going to be on live after every single game, and we'll be on talking about the Jets-Eagles game this upcoming week. Again, Aaron Glenn has announced the stars aren't playing. Would I've liked to see the starting unit get another rep with the offense, especially, of course. But, at this point, it sounds like the Jets have been having physical practices. If they feel the best thing to do is just take it easy against the Eagles, I don't have any problem with that. Let's see. There's a lot. Okay, so let's talk about this. So again, Chris with a lot of suggestions. I gave you Smith and I gave you Clowney. Preston Smith, I think, could be a decent fit. Olojawari, to me, is more of a 3-4 outside linebacker. I love the pass rush he brings, but if the Jets are looking to run more 3-4, he could be a fit. Gross Matos, again, Mateos, I can never say that name right. I do think is another interesting. These are all interesting options, but I do think, like, if your top two, Clowney to me makes the most sense. Smith makes the most sense. The hard part with the other ones, again, too, they're kind of going the opposite direction. It feels like the Jets, Aaron Glenn, the staff want a younger team or a controllable asset. The edge position is one of those ones I don't think you're really going to get one. Where Smith and Clowney, it's like, okay, they're 1-year vets. I get it. Makes sense. Some of these other guys, I don't know if they want 2 or 3 year contracts. So those are my thoughts on the edge position. Jared Ivey's not a bad idea, too. We got to see what the Seahawks do as well. Kev has a strong opinion about Tyers and also Jadeveon Clowney. So, again, if you have any more questions about the defensive end position, make sure to comment in the chat, super chat, jump to the front of the line. But let's get to the big talking point, which is the wide receiver position. Now, again, we've seen it out there that the Jets are in the market for a number 2 wide receiver. And many of us would say, yeah, that should be pretty obvious. The Jets need to add a number 2 receiver. Here is the problem with that, though. There are a couple guys out there that I think are intriguing. I think when you mention wide receiver, like Romeo Doubs or Alex Pierce jump to the front of the list. Now, Pierce, to me, would be the best player option, but here's the problem. I think Indy's going to look for a 3rd or 4th round pick, and also Pierce needs an extension. Will the Jets be willing to go that far? I don't think so. I am still under the opinion that if the Jets add a receiver, it will be a young receiver that a team is looking to cut that is under financial control. Now, Romeo Doubs is an interesting one. I know the Packers have a lot of receivers that are kind of on this bubble, but if I am the New York Jets, I don't think that they add a wide receiver yet. I know that people are saying, well, the 49ers got Sky Moore. Well, it was basically for a 7th round pick, and he's someone that hasn't been working out with the Chiefs, so we'll see what the 49ers can do. If anything, I think the most likely candidate is the Jets somehow trade Malachi Corley. I doubt anyone's going to give you a big offer. It seems like Allen Lazard is going to start the season on the IR. I think he'll eventually get traded once he's healthy. My thoughts for the wide receiver 2 position are, if the Jets make a trade for a receiver, and I said this in the last episode, it happens closer to the trade deadline. It happens if the Jets are, like, let's say 4-4, let's say 5-3, and they look at it and they go, okay, we are on the edge right now of making the playoffs. There will be teams that will be selling at this trade deadline. And the big reason why I think this will be a very good trade deadline is because you have an incredibly talented quarterback class coming out. If you're the Jets and you're pushing for the playoffs and you're a 5-3 football team, let's be honest, you're not thinking about the draft. Because if you have 8 wins or 9 wins, you're not going to be close to the top of the draft to get one of these elite quarterbacks. But there will be teams, like let's say the Saints, let's say the Browns, that by the time we get to November have one or 2 wins, and they basically said, you know what, we are going full in for these quarterbacks. We're trying to trade expiring contracts, and we need to get as many draft assets as possible for 2 reasons. Number one, in case we need to trade up for a quarterback, and also if we do trade up, that we have a couple of assets to still make some picks within the draft. That, to me, is when the Jets, if they add a number 2 receiver, will do so. Now, could I see them maybe getting a defensive end with a 7th round pick that's under team control? I think that's more likely. I just feel like the Jets are going to create targets for Breece Hall. They're going to create targets for Arian Smith. They're going to create targets for Mason Taylor. They're going to create targets for their tight ends, because the way I look at it is, like, if Alex Pierce was there for like a 5th or 6th round pick potentially, maybe the Jets are comfortable with that extension, but there really isn't a great option. And let's be frank, I don't think the Jets are signing a veteran receiver. The receivers on the market right now are over 30 years old. It's clear no one really wants them. The only one that moved recently was Keenan Allen. He went back to the Chargers, which seemingly like a final run for him. I just don't see the Jets going out and making a splashy move. Trading a 6 and swapping a 6 to get a 7th round pick and a defensive tackle, that makes sense for them. Could they maybe do the same thing they did, like swap a 6 and get a 7th or just a 6 straight up for an edge rusher who they think is an ascending player but under team control? Sure, I could see that happening as well. But do I really think that the Jets, who, let's remember, don't have a 3rd round pick this year because of the Hassan Reddick debacle, are going to have a 1st, a 2nd, and 2 4s? And one of the 4s is the count pick for the Hassan Reddick. I don't think the Jets are willing to give up a 4th round pick right now for a wide receiver. Now, if we get close to the trade deadline, the Jets see they're not going to be a top 10, 15 pick, then of course that changes the draft board, that changes how they can attack the draft board. Then maybe it makes sense. Now, I'm also going to refresh Twitter just because my luck, and this is another reason why I used to subscribe to this show, it seems like that every time I come on, there's always a surprise trade in here. So again, or a signing. I was live when Sherwood's extension got done. I was live when Garrett's deal got done. So I'm just double checking to make sure that this is basically nothing big's happening. So again, it doesn't seem like the Jets as of now are not doing any other crazy deals. But look, Viking fans, you can tell they're not happy they traded Harrison Phillips. I think the Jets got a very good clubhouse guy, but also someone that is a good starting caliber player next to their big defensive tackle in Quinnen Williams. I also look too at Jowon Briggs. I mean, this is a guy that is a massive dude. And if you look, like, just look at pictures. I mean, there's a case that he's got the biggest arms on the New York Jets right now. This is a big dude, and again, doesn't have that up the field burst that you're necessarily looking for, but a big sturdy build, 6'1", sawed off a little bit, 313. You know, he had really good tape this offseason, doing really good against the double team. And again, that's the big thing you want from these guys. You don't necessarily want them to get sacks, but you want them to clog up the spaces so that your linebackers can run free and also get Quinnen some more one-on-one matchups. That to me is what good teams do. You put your best players like Quinnen Williams in the best positions to succeed. And that to me is what I think is the biggest takeaway from this move. Now, again, it's tough with Rashad Weaver also going on the IR. I think he was having a good offseason until the injury. But if I had to guess, I think the final defensive line room is probably going to be Quinnen, Phillips, Briggs, Leonard Taylor, Tufale, and I think Brian Cowart makes it. Now, again, I think part of the reason for that is the Jets probably only have 4 edges technically to start the year: McDonald, Jermaine, Michael Clemens, Eric Watts. Now, my thoughts, again, like I said earlier in the show, for people that are freaking out saying, oh my God, they only have 4 edges. I feel a lot of the Jets are going to do some big lineups. They're going to move some of the D tackles out to DN, especially in early running down situations. I think you're going to see them do a lot of 3-4 fronts, maybe have Jermaine. There might be a package too, where if we're talking about the 3-4, they have Jermaine standing up on the edge. They have Will McDonald standing up on the edge, and they basically have Quinnen, Phillips, and Briggs along that defensive line. Like, let's say it's a 1st and 10. I mean, it's not a traditional front, but it's still a big, heavy front. You have a speed guy in Will McDonald still out there. Probably gets McDonald a better position outside the tackle, and I'm working on the shoulder of the tight end. So I think the Jets, this gives them a lot of versatility and gives them a lot of different ways that they can attack this offenses with this defense. Look, Kev, I'll say this about Brees, because Aaron Glenn said they're not trading him. If Brees Hall gets traded, it's one of 2 times. It's at the end of the season where the Jets don't feel they're going to be able to resign him, or at the trade deadline if the season's going off the rails, or Braylon Allen is just beating the brakes off of, Brees Hall, and Brees Hall's like barely playing getting any reps, which I doubt will be the case. He's not getting traded now. He's not getting traded now. Look, Kevin, good to have you back in the chat. And I get the Alex Pierce love, and on paper it makes a lot of sense, but there's two big problems with Alex Pierce. Number one, he wants an extension. That's number one. Number two, and I think this is the biggest one, is yes, the Jets are interested in wide receiver. You know what's also come out? There's a lot of teams interested in wide receivers. I think one of the reasons the Vikings made their trade was to go after Alex Pierce, open up cap space to trade for him. Because again, Jordan Addison suspended the first 3 games of the season. I think that you're going to see a lot of teams in. There's been rumors about the Steelers, the Colts. I mean, even though the 49ers just made a trade, they're looking for a receiver. Like, yes, the Jets are looking for a receiver. Guess what? There's probably another 10 NFL teams looking for a receiver. And if it comes down to a bidding war, the Jets, I don't think are going to get into it. The money, I don't think is the issue. It's the draft pick. I just don't see them trading a asset to then sign and invest in the wide receiver. They've already made a huge investment with Garrett Wilson's contract. So you're going to trade a pick for a player you've never had before and then pay him. I also have this weird thing too, where I wonder how it looks in the locker room when you have guys like AVT and John Simpson. But let's stick with AVT, a guy that's been on the Jets for years, asking for a pay raise, doing everything right this offseason, looking really good. And then your team goes out, trades for a guy that's never played it down for your team, and you give him a massive new contract before you give it to a guy in your own building. I don't know how that would play out. But again, I just think I would not be shocked if he goes for like a 3rd or 4th round pick. And if he goes for a 4th round pick, yes, the Jets have a 4th, but it's probably going to be their 4th one because they don't have the comp one yet. Your comp one's basically going to be at the end of the 4th round. So there could be a scenario where the Jets, who, let's say they don't have a great season, okay, they trade for Alex Pierce, great. But now you only have a 1st round pick, a 2nd round pick, and your next pick, you don't have a 3rd, you don't have an early 4th. It's a late 4th, which is almost like a 5th round pick. I'm not sure that's how the Jets would want to do that. Now, Romeo Doubs is an interesting one. Now, the thing that worries me about the Packers receivers, and you saw it against the Jets, they have a lot of drops. They have a lot of drops. So I know that they basically, Matt LaFleur's come out, oh, they're not trading, we're not cutting Romeo Doubs. I did see some crazy package today, too, where they're like, oh, the Jets should trade for Terry McLaurin, but give up their 2nd and 3rd round pick. First of all, the Jets don't have a 3rd round pick, so you haven't paid attention to the Jets' draft capital. But I get when you look at Doubs, you look at basically his career, 15 touchdowns, over 1,700 yards. I understand the appeal of Doubs. I just don't love the drop issues that he's had. And the other thing too is I don't think you have to pay him right away, but still, this is a guy that also we're forgetting has had some injury history. Now, first year in the league, only played in 13 games. Last year, only in 13 games. Look, he's he's a player that has had great flashes, but also his best year is 2023. I mean, last year, only 4 touchdowns, 601 yards. I mean, if they're giving him away and going to cut him and it's a 6th or 7th round pick, sure, but then the case is, well, Doubs has a great season. Are you going to pay him? And I'm not sure the Jets would. In a weird way, Doubs to me is more of a likely scenario because now that I'm thinking about it, Doubs to me makes a little bit more sense from another perspective. Pierce, you're going to have to sign, and he's not going to go anywhere unless he gets signed. Romeo Doubs could be an interesting idea for this reason. It's very clear that Muji is very into the comp picks. He made sure to not go overboard, made sure the Jets kept all their comp picks. I think he wants to operate like the Eagles do when they have the comp picks, to send them for veterans and, be a little bit more versatile. So for me, if they view Doubs and they can get him for like a 6th round pick, maybe a 5th, but they swap a 6. So let's say the Jets trade their 5th, but they get Green Bay a 6 back. I'd be for that. And let's say Doubs has a good season and the Jets come back and we're paying Garrett. We like Dobbs, but we're not really sure. If he gets free agency, wide receivers get a lot more money in free agency. I do think that could be something to keep an eye on, and especially when you're evaluating comp picks. I mean, that might be a reason why maybe John Simpson could be someone that the Jets don't keep if they sign AVT, because they can move Tippmann to guard, and guards get paid a ton of money in free agency. We always see a bomb 5 team, bomb 6 team pay $100 million for a guard, which helps you with a comp pick. Maybe Muji could look at it that way. If you bring in Dobbs, he plays well. You can get a comp pick if he goes somewhere else. I mean, that could be a scenario where with Pierce, I do think it's going to be a guy that you're going to have to sign instantly. All right, let's get to some more of your questions. Super chat at the front of the line. He has to increase the valuable. Yeah, the thing though, Kevin, too, is with this, it's not just one team we're dealing with. We're dealing with 31 other teams. And it's clear that there's a lot of teams interested. It's clear that Pierce is going to probably be the biggest demand for a wide receiver trade right now. Like I said, I don't think the Jets, do they add a receiver? Maybe someone gets cut. That's a surprise. And they sign someone, maybe. I just look at this and I go, I think that the Jets, if they are to add a wide receiver, it will be at the trade deadline. If they are in a playoff position and they feel like this is right there, like the final piece to this puzzle is another wide receiver, then I think they do it then. However, I do think the Jets could be in the market for a DN. I think that is more likely, and I could see that moving. And the big thing, too, is for the Jets, they traded 6th-round picks. And let's be honest, are the 5th-round picks even going to make the roster this year or just be practice squad players? Look, there's a world where Alex Pierce might not even be available. I mean, look, he's an explosive player, still 25, but I think it's one of those things where I think the Colts will listen, but it's going to have to be an offer that just blows them away, or an offer you're like, okay, they couldn't have said no to that. It's kind of like the Jamal Adams situation where you don't really want to trade him at the time, but when you see the offer you got back, you're like, okay, if you didn't take that offer, someone would have you for a random drug screen the next morning to see if you were okay. So, I mean, we have seen a couple of receivers remove more. Of course, Mechie from the Texans. So I could see the Jets getting a receiver. I just don't see it now. And look, do I wish the Jets were a little bit more aggressive in free agency? Maybe so they didn't have to trade some of these very late picks. Sure. But I do think that they went out and they got a starting defensive caliber player. And look, the Jets are a team that I think they're going to be very difficult to run on. And you look at this division, especially what I think are going to be the 2 best teams, I think you're going to want to run the football. The Bills clearly want to run the football with Josh Allen and that James Cook. They want to control the line of scrimmage. I think that you're playing against their strength. And I'll be saying this about the Patriots. I mean, the Patriots, the wide receiver room isn't talented. I think, wasn't there a report too? And again, I'll have to check. I think something about Polk, who was one of the big Patriots draft picks. I think he got injured. It came out earlier that Jalen Polk will miss the entire season due to a shoulder injury, 2nd-round pick from 2024. So he was likely going to be one of their top 2 receivers. He's injured. We know they have the good, talented running back. And look, the Patriots' offensive line, they're a better run blocking unit than a pass block. Their pass block is freaking horrendous. So when I look at the Jets, they look like, okay, the 2 best teams that we have to play 4 times on our schedule, they want to run the football. All right. We'll make it difficult for them to run the football. We'll make it so it's not a fun activity for them. Rico, the pup. What real value do any of the realistic trades for wide receiver would move the needle enough for it to be worth it? Do any of these guys truly allow them to do what they want on offense? What value? Okay. Sorry, thinking quicker than the other thing too, Rico, and I think Kev chimes into this as well too. You look into this as well. Who's the Jets quarterback? It's Justin Fields. The Jets are not going to be a team that's going to be a top 15 pass attempt offense in this league. If they are, they're not going to win many games. So when I look at this team, I think the Jets are going to be top 3 in rushing attempts. They're going to try to run the football and hit a couple home runs a game with Justin Fields. So with that, like, especially too, like, here's another thing. Like, I brought up Romeo Doubs earlier. I brought up Alec Pierce. And let's say they had the option to pick where they want to go. If you're those two guys at the moment, why would you want to go to the Jets? Yes, you work against Garrett Wilson, but this is a team that I don't think they're going to throw more than 30, 35 times a game. And even Aaron Glenn said, the comment, it's a passing league. He's like, is it? He brings up a good point. Look at the best teams last year. Detroit was a running football team first. The Bills love to run the football. The Eagles especially love to run the football. If you can run the football and control the line of scrimmage, you don't have to throw the ball all over the yard. So I just don't think that the Jets look at wide receiver like 2 right now. Again, the other way I look at it too, and I said this in the last episode, we talked about receivers. I think the better term with the Jets is pass catchers. Because Mason Taylor, I think, is going to get a lot of targets in this offense. I think Stone Smart is going to get a lot of targets in this offense. I think you're going to see Breece Hall and the running backs get a lot of targets in this offense. Arian Smith, I think, will get a couple design plays a game for him as well. So when I look at this team and they want to be a run-first, smash-mouth football team, why are they going to pay a premium for wide receiver? It's like if you are – like, let's say the Chiefs. The Chiefs, we know with Patrick Mahomes, yes, they're getting away from throwing it all over the place, but just as an example, like they need a receiver or they want to add more weapons to the passing offense, but they get a bowling ball running back to run between the tackles that should be handed off 25 times a game. It's like it doesn't really fit what they're doing. I mean, I look at the Eagles as a great example to the Jets. I mean, I think you're going to see the Jets run the football, 3rd and 2, do a tush-push design play, run a lot of different options out of their base with a lot of different motions. They're going to have a lot of design runs. And I think you're going to see Justin Fields, if he's healthy, rush for close to 1,000 yards. Again, there'll be weeks where he'll make some big plays with the arms, and maybe he'll throw over 250 yards one week. But if you're expecting Justin Fields to come out and all of a sudden be a highly efficient quarterback, that's not who he is. You want him to play like a poor man's version of Jalen Hurts. Is Jalen Hurts the most efficient quarterback in the world? No. But you know what? He runs around. He makes a lot of plays. He scores a lot of rushing touchdowns. He moves the chains. And when he needs to hit a big play down the field, he hits a big play down the field. That is what you are looking for. Briggs is a high upside D tackle. Phillips, established D tackle, veteran line, general overall run stopping stuff in the run, making blocks and tackles in run game. Look, they're solid run defenders. It's a position and a type the Jets have clearly missed. And like I said earlier, the Jets might not be a traditional 4-3 team. Maybe we'll see them do more hybrid 3-4 fronts, move guys around, because Phillips, too, don't forget, he was the nose tackle in the 3-4 scheme that they ran in Minnesota. You look at Wilkes' history, he's been primarily a 3-4 front guy. So I do think you're going to see the Jets attack with multiple fronts. I could see them basically having McDonald stand up as a pass rush linebacker, Jermaine Johnson working on the outside. And again, you have Jamin Davis, whose team really likes on the inside. You could move Sherwood around, Quincy around, maybe on certain plays, one of them is coming off the edge. I think you're going to see a lot of exotic blitzes, a lot of non-conventional looks. I mean, one of the looks I'll always remember, and I could see the Jets doing this against a high passing volume offense, was when the Jets played the Patriots in 2010 with Rex Ryan. It was one of the better designed defenses I saw, which really made it difficult because that was the time the Patriots were trying to throw all over the place. He did a hybrid 3-3-5, but it was almost like a 3-3. I would call it a 3-3.5, 4.5, because they would drop the safety into basically a linebacking position. So maybe there'll be a look too, because again, Malachi Moore, who does need to learn how to wrap up, but is a bigger safety, can play in the box. Maybe they look at him as someone that on certain schemes he comes up and plays almost like a hybrid middle linebacker in the middle of the field, almost like a rover. So I do think you're going to see a lot of intriguing fronts from this team, a lot of different looks from this team. So the big thing, though, is this gives you flexibility because 24 hours ago, if you were to ask who's the best run-stopping defensive player, it'd be Jermaine or Quinnen, and then there'd be a huge drop-off. Now, all of a sudden, you look and the Jets addressed a weakness. They could make it potentially a strength. And when you look at your team, you also want to build for your division. Your top two teams are going to want to run the football. And now you have made it so it is very difficult to dictate that against this team and running at will. Jermaine Orey was pass rushing at 2-point stance plenty of times. I agree, Rich. I wouldn't be surprised if they throw that in, but wouldn't it have been mentioned being used in camp? I'll say this. The Jets have been kind of hush-hush about things, which I like. Again, I think the scheme has been pretty, mundane for the preseason. And this could also be something as the season goes along. I feel like Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilks are also going to be guys that, depending on the health of this team, are going to try to make it work. And you saw it last year with Detroit. Like, let's say the Jets backers get some injuries. Maybe then you see some more emphasis on the defensive line, more 4-2 scheme, more trying to get pressure with the front four. Maybe if some of the edges aren't getting there, maybe you go to, like I was saying, the bigger front with trying to get pressure off the edges. I think you're just going to see multiple different looks. And for Jermaine, too, Jermaine, they're saying, is having a very good camp at this point. But, we haven't really seen what they're going to do. I just think you're going to see a lot of different fronts. Like last year with the Jets, you knew what you were getting. You were getting 4 down linemen, probably 2 backers. There's a 4-2-5, maybe a 4-3, depending on the package, but it would be 4-2-5, 3 corners, 2 safeties, 2 linebackers, 4 defensive linemen, 90% of the time. That would be their front. They would rush with the front 4, lots of zone, barely any man coverage. Now, all of a sudden, this team, I think you're going to see a lot of blitzes. Even you heard from practice, they're blitzing corners, they're blitzing safeties. Like, I won't be surprised now, Michael Carter in the slot blitzing a lot more. I could see Sauce on occasion coming off the edge. The safeties that they have, I could see coming up in the box. I think the Jets are going to bring pressure from every direction. And the other thing that this move does, it helps arguably your 2 most electric players, which are your linebackers. Jamie and Sherwood and Quincy Williams get bullied in the run game if a guard gets up to their level because they're smaller linebackers. But you know what this also does? Now you have massive bodies in front of you that are taking blocks, and you can come off the edge. We didn't see this used a lot under Saleh because, again, they were dropped in coverage. But I believe that they are going to design plays with Quincy and Sherwood coming in like bats out of heck, coming either off the edge or up the middle. And now that you have these larger bodies that can take on these double teams, it allows them to do what they do best, which is come downhill in a fury. And again, we've seen it with the Jets. How many times when we see Quincy coming down with a full head of steam is absolutely terrifying if you're an offensive player. If he's coming at you full speed, that is a scary option. And I think you're going to see that is a big reason. And look, the biggest thing I take away from this too is if you are worried about Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji, they've proven something to you already with these 2 trades. They're not going to rest on their laurels. They are constantly looking to get this team better, and they don't care who it hurts. Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas seem like the type of guys, like they wanted their guys to succeed, but they also would go down with the ship with those guys. We drafted these guys. These are our guys. Well, how'd that turn out? We saw it with Joe Douglas, the refusal to bring in a veteran backup when Aaron Rodgers was hurt that first year. And then last year, the refusal to move on from Greg Zuerlein when he clearly had lost it in the kicking game was maddening. We've seen these 2 guys go through camp. They've seen the tape, and they said, you know what? We're not good enough stopping the run. We need to get better, and that is exactly what they did. And it tells me that Aaron Glenn and especially Darren Muji are constantly going to be looking to improve this roster. They're not just going to take what they see and say, like, okay, Well, this is the best we can do. No, we are going to go out of our way to ensure that we are going to be aggressive and look to keep improving this ball club. And if an opportunity presents itself, we will take advantage. That's exactly what they did. Minnesota is looking to get under the cap, and they have to make a tough decision with a veteran player. Oh, he'll be a hot commodity. Let's get a pick. We'll trade 2 sixes, but we'll get a 7th back, and we'll get a player that's a key veteran, a starting caliber player that's under 2 years of control. And oh, look, the Browns, incredibly deep, looking to move off from a defensive tackle. We really like his upside. 23, controllable for 3 years, going to be under $1 million of control. Okay, we'll find a spot for him. That, to me, is the sign of a good coach and GM who also are willing to say, hey, we are not good enough in this position. We're not going to go into the season and just say, oh, we hope it'll get better. Oh, we hope the guys can find it. Oh, we hope, hope is a dangerous thing that I think has irked this organization. I think there was a lot of hope under Adam Gase and Robert Saleh. The hope that their guys would figure out, or the hope that they were talented enough as coaches to out-scheme it or figure it out. Here's the thing, they weren't. And we saw the result. And I give this front office credit because they could have gone out there with their defensive tackles. They've invested money in these players, but they've seen, look, it's not good enough. There's an opportunity to get better. We have to make this team better, and that's exactly what they did. I still think this team is not done. There's a lot of action that's going to be coming in the coming days, especially with cutdowns. I think you're going to see more trades. I'm curious to see if the Jets address the edge position through free agency, maybe a trade that we're not expecting. All I know is there is going to be a lot of activity. And what I know, too, is you should hit that like and subscribe button because we're going to be here for the ride. Now, again, if you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button so you miss any of our latest content. Super chat to jump to the front of the line. And if you're missing the show but you want to take us on the go, Rich Sports Talk is streaming wherever podcasts are available. But I would like to hear from you guys on this, though. So my plan is to come on live after the Eagles preseason game tomorrow. Let me know if that works best for you, or if you'd like an early one on Sunday or Monday for a recap. Again, let me know in the comments below. I will recap the Eagles game. The debate is, do I do it Friday night? I know it's a bit late. I know people also have fun plans on Friday. I will say Saturday will be difficult because Saturday I'm having a family party, which again is celebrating someone very important in my family. So that will be a little bit tricky. Sunday's a funny one. I don't mind doing Sunday, but I know a lot of you guys have a lot of weekend plans as the summer's coming to a full end. You're probably got some fun weekend plans. So let me know in the comments what's the best day. Worst case scenario, I'll be back Monday. I also think Monday might not be a bad idea because it gives me a chance to go over all the game field ad nauseum, but also to keep an eye on what potential days and Kevin. So I am leaning toward Monday. So let's just do it here. We'll do Monday. We'll recap the weekend. We'll see what moves the Jets make. Again, if they do make a breaking move on Sunday, I will come on live as soon as I can to give you all the latest and greatest on the New York Jets. But again, thank you everyone for joining us for another great episode of Rich Sports Talk. Again, lots of great questions from you guys. One of the things that makes our show so great is you, the fans. You guys always have so many great questions and opinions that you bring to the table, and I greatly appreciate that. And again, like and subscribe because I want to get more people in our chats. You guys have so many great opinions, but we know there's a huge Jet fandom out there that we are trying to get more views in front of, and we know we'll bring a lot more to the table with even better questions. But again, thank you everyone for joining us. We look forward to seeing you here next time on Rich Sports Talk.